Now, if you've been around the channel for a while, you know that my STI has been nothing but a problem child since we put this engine in it. It's had all sorts of weird issues, some of them being my own fault, some of them being things that we had to learn, and some of them just being the car, or just the car being stupid. So lately we've been having crank trigger sync loss issues, and it has been an issue that I've dealt with since we have initially swapped to this car, and it went away once we got it running again with the new engine in there, but it decided to come back, and it came back with the vengeance. So right here is the solution to all of our problems. Now, before we go down the rabbit hole of me just tearing into this thing and us fixing this, let me get this out of the way real quick. So the way that the ECU knows where the engine is relative to position is the teeth on the cam and the crank. You're gonna have these on pretty much every single engine. The style in which they read and the location of which they read will always be different. On my EG right here, we've got our crank trigger here, and then on the back side of the cam sprocket here, we've got one tooth that flies around and it passes the sensor on that side. Now, this is our problem here. Looking at the oscilloscope readings on the Hallaffect whenever this thing was going, we saw our issues coming from crank position. Now, what appears to be happening here is the crank position sensor is actually picking up the front teeth and the rear teeth. You see, we use an adapter, sits in place on top of the oil pump there, bolts down, and then reads engine position, but it's just hanging over enough for it to be able to pick up both teeth and throw off our crank position sensor. So what we're gonna be doing is fixing all of that today. This trigger is a 12 minus 0, so there's no missing teeth on it. It's just 12 equally spaced teeth. Now right here we've got our new sprocket. This is a custom made sprocket from Nemesis Performance. They will make these if you need them. This one is made for an EG33. They also make them for EJ25s. Now this wheel here, you'll notice there's only one missing tooth, and it's right there. This is a 36 minus 1. There's 36 teeth with one missing. So this is what's going to replace it. We also have a Hallaffect sensor. Now the Hallaffect is a little bit different, but it works in a very similar style. This one just has an additional wire added in. Now these wires over here are going to be your voltage input, your voltage output, and your ground. Let's start off today by jumping into this. Let's take off all the timing. Let's get that stock sprocket off and swap over to our new one. Now before I go installing these, I did want to show you guys the differences of why this one is superior. A, it's built with aluminum with a steel plate on it, but you can see all the teeth are on the back side. When using an EJ oil pump, you need all the teeth to be on the back, otherwise you have to run an adapter. Or on these stock sprockets here, I can't find my old one that I used to have. You have to cut off all the rear teeth and extend or weld these front teeth to this back plate here. Because EGs run two different crank position sensors. They have one that reads the front teeth and then one that reads the back teeth. These work and they work okay, but you have to, I honestly think you just have to remove this rear ring off the back side or just grind all those teeth down. So I believe that was our biggest issue. To install this new one, what we're gonna have to do is heat up this billet aluminum to get it to expand a little bit, put a little bit of anti-seize on the crank, and then this should just slide on and it should snug fit itself back down after it cools. They don't say to beat it or anything like that. I did read the instructions this time. There we go. Let our sprocket cool down now. It is definitely press fit on there and not coming off. Our teeth are right where we want it. This Hallaffect sensor is going to just go in like that. So what we need to do is set the gap between the Hallaffect sensor and the teeth of the sprocket. Now, I don't have any feeler gauges here with me, but I just measured out 2 razor blades. One razor blade is 20 thou, 2 of them put together is 40 thou. So if we can fit 2 of these, really rudimentary way, but 40 thou is 40 thou. So we need to come down a little bit more. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that tooth right there is the one that lines up. Yeah, baby. There's our missing tooth. So coming up on this one, we should be back in time. Right there.
You want some AN fittings, little boy? Do you want some AN fittings, little boy? Do you want some AN fittings, little boy?
Got the new oil return line done. As you guys can see, it's actually wrapped in the DEI heat sleeve this time. Last time it was not. I also have it secured up to the block so that way it keeps the line off the exhaust manifold, and then it just wraps up there to the turbo. We also have new oil filter on, radiators in, timing covers are on. I want to get some oil in this thing, get it back on the ground, and then we can start getting the intercooler on, charge piping. Tomorrow morning is when we'll wire up all that sensor and whatnot, all that cool stuff. So let's get this thing back on the ground and let's keep going. Bam. 7 1/4 quarts. That's how much oil this engine takes. Gone ahead, we have a new oil feed line set up to the turbo, so it'll go down. It goes to our inline FP filter and reducer here, and it goes to the oil feed on the back of the cylinder head right there. We also have the intercooler on, some of the charge piping and whatnot. What we need to do now is wire up this sensor here for our new crank sprocket. And what we're going to need for that is switch 12 volt. We are also going to need a signal ground, as well as the crank trigger positive, which is the yellow wire coming off of right there. So is find a 12 volt signal source and a signal ground to be able to pull from. And where I've decided to pull from is from the ethanol sensor. It's a less important, I mean, it's still important, don't get me wrong, but it's a less important thing in the engine bay that we can pull the 12 volt switch signal from and the signal ground. It'll still work. We're just gonna tee into it, run those wires up behind the manifold, underneath the manifold, and have them come out down here. So that way we can wire all this up. Let me get to town. I will, but if this works, let me specify, if this works, I'll probably end up making a new engine harness for this car anyways, because I don't like having janky wiring like this, but it's whatever. Hallaffect sensor wired up here. I'm not crazy happy with how the main harness looks right there. Like I said, if this works, I'll probably just build a new engine harness and make it look all pretty and perfect again now that we've got things kind of figured out a little bit more. But our Hallaffect sensor has a 40 thou gap in between the sprocket and the sensor itself. The sensor is very tight, it's Loctited down. We are plugged in. I ended up pulling 12 volts from the ethanol sensor. So what I'm gonna do now is hop into the software. Well, I'm gonna pull out the RX-7's ECU because I still have that in here. Pull out the RX-7's ECU, plug in the STIs, jump into the software, edit the trigger settings for Hallaffect, 36-1, 1 home, all that stuff. Then we need to reset base timing. So I'm gonna have to bust out the timing light. They do give a rough value to start around, which is about 90 degrees, which is very different from where we're at now because we are at 686 degrees. But now the EG33 MPF 36-1 trigger kit is installed, is recommended to have professional tuner set the base timing 90 degrees. BTDC is a good starting point for the trick tooth offset, but should be synced with timing light to ensure proper ignition timing. So I am professional tuner. I am tuner. I'm not a tuner, but I know more than enough to be able to do that easily. So let me get all the ECU settings and software all set up inside of the car. We can get base timing set and hopefully this thing fucking fires right up, no problem. I've got spark plugs out, so this thing should be able to turn over fairly freely. Always on, firing angle, 0 degrees. Trigger system, timing light set to 0 degrees. We are currently at 88 degrees, so let's see what we can get on our timing light. We're about 1 or 2 degrees off. Now I've got timing set at 87 degrees. That is fucking spot on. 87 degrees is our TDC offset. That's firing at 0 degrees, so now when I take off, I want to unlock ignition timing and just see what we're at. Money. That is fucking money. Okay, knowing that our TDC offset is 87 degrees, we have everything set. It's unlocked, it's set to 87. So the whole reason that you lock TDC offset or your top dead center offset angle is so that no map adjustments or corrections are trying to update or fuck with your timing as you're trying to set it. So we verified it, 87 degrees is where this wants to fire. Plug in the intercooler piping again, plug the spark plug wires back on, and try to fire it up and see what happens now that we verified TDC offset. We have brand new spark plugs in here, all gapped down to 26 thou. Spark plug wires are plugged back in. We have verified TDC offset. We have entered that into the Haltech. We have our Hallaffect sensor in there. You know, it's just poggers. I bet you're wondering why I was just welding, right? Well, I went to go try to start the car again, right? After I made all these changes, and it wouldn't crank. And I'm like, what in the hell is going on? So I looked down at my dash and my thing said the wideband's going to 60. I was like, wideband shouldn't be going to 60. What's going on there? What's wrong with that? So I was like, let me hop out and go check the O2 sensor. Let me go see what the O2 sensor's doing, right? Right? Are you following along here? So I go up to the O2 sensor. I look at him, I say, hey man, I'm just gonna take you out real quick. Just take a look. I just wanna take a look at you, then I'll put you right back in. So I go to try to take it out, and the motherfucker didn't wanna come out. Motherfucker said, I ain't leaving this O2 sensor bung in this downpipe. I'ma strip and seize to it, and there ain't a goddamn thing you can do about it, sir. So I looked at him, I said, don't you say that to me, right? He looked back at me and he said, try me. So I said, all right, I'll try you. So I brought the downpipe over here to the bench, right? I threw it in my handy dandy vise there. You might be able to see it right there. And I looked at him, I said, this is your last chance, come out, man. I heated him up with the torch a little bit. I said, let me make you nice and cozy before I take you out. I go to take him out and he says, I ain't leaving. This is my home. So I looked at him again, right? I said, oh no, you coming out. So I went to go take him out. He decided to round the fuck out. He said, I ain't leaving. And then he decided to strip himself out and say, you ain't taking me out this goddamn bung. So I grabbed my friend, handy dandy Mr. Angle Grinder. Or I guess this is a die grinder. So I grabbed Mr. Die Grinder, right? I walk over there and I'm like, hey, this is the last chance. He said, I ain't leaving, so I cut his ass out. After I cut his ass out, I welded his friend George in there. Now we got George, the O2 sensor bung in there. And then I went up to Mr. Mazda outside. I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Mazda, but I need to kidnap your O2 sensor. And the Mazda's like, hey man, that's cool, all right? We ain't running today, we ain't running tomorrow, man. You take what you need. So I grabbed it, and now here we are. It's been quite the poggers day, let me tell you. Let me put this new O2 sensor in our freshly welded downpipe bung. Let me put the downpipe back in. Let's try to start this thing one more time. If the STI doesn't want to cooperate and it doesn't want to start, I'm going to go home. I'm tired of being abused by the Subaru today. So, this is its last chance before I abandon it on the lift for another couple of days. That's cool, but it's fucking running rich as shit. I'm gonna try to call Josh and see if Josh has any ideas. That's a fun smell. I don't know what the fuck, I fucking just fucked with settings and it was like, hey, let me just fire the fuck up. I don't get it, I don't get it. So here's kind of where we're at with things. I was on the phone with Josh. Josh team viewed into my laptop, made some changes to the STI because with changing base timing like we did, it threw everything off. That's why it was running super rich. That's why I didn't want to start up first try anymore. So we're fixed on all that. I'm gonna hook up the electric power steering. We're gonna go take this thing for a drive real quick and see how it responds and see just kind of how well it works. I just want to make sure it works. Before we do that though, I gotta finish burping the cooling system, but we'll do that in a minute. We'll do that in a minute. Alright, I'm gonna let the cooling system bubble up a little bit. We'll pop that off, we'll put the cap back on, and I'm gonna go drive this thing around the complex for a little bit, just to make sure our trigger system doesn't come back. But dude, I don't know if you guys can hear it with revving, but it sounds so much snappier, it sounds so much more crisp, and it just sounds healthy. It sounds healthy. So driving the Subaru around, sync loss up high in the RPM band. I think that's just a filter change in the ECU, and it has trouble starting, which is like not seeing engine RPM when spinning over. So it's like the engine isn't spinning fast enough. I'm not sure what's going on there. So I'm gonna try a couple changes in the ECU real quick to like minimum cranking speed and things like that for it to be able to start. So give me a minute. So I played with a couple settings in the Hallaffect. I'm gonna have to do some reading tonight on Hallaffect's site for like minimum cranking RPM stuff, because the RPM isn't always showing up whenever I go to crank. So I don't know if that's a battery issue. I don't know if it's too low voltage. Eventually it does start, but it takes a decent amount to get there. So I'm gonna do some reading tonight, but it works. And it doesn't throw engine position every single time anymore, which is exactly what, it hasn't thrown it at all, except for once when I over revved it, and I revved it to like 7,500 RPM when I wasn't supposed to, but oops. So I'm big hyped for it, that we have no more problem. Please, if there are actual car gods out there, please just listen to my prayers. Don't give us any more problems with this. I should have gone with that sprocket to begin with. I didn't. It's just, everything just gets so expensive so fast. You try to save money where you can, and you really should have done it right, but whatever. It's right now. So that's all I got for you guys on this one. I have to get some stuff ordered for the STI. We still need to get it aligned. We still need to work out power steering. I had power steering connected when I just drove it around, but it felt like power steering wanted to kill me. It was trying to like turn hard right when I lean into throttle, and it was like, and it wanted to just kill me. So it's a problem for a different day. So anyways, with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. If you're big type C the STI back, go ahead, hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, cyan, whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be, I'll put it in one of these corners. No idea which one quite yet, but with that, I'll catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.